rewind a bit and let's just remind ourselves why we're in this position. We want to have the referendum. That's the absolute key thing. We don't want the EU to have a permanent president in this way. I think this is one of the things that's wrong with the Lisbon Treaty. Is the Lisbon Treaty, it's effectively a constitution for Europe. It gives Europe a president, a foreign minister, a diplomatic service. It makes it more of a country. And that's one of the reasons I don't like the Lisbon Treaty and one of the reasons I'd like us to have a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. We want to have the referendum. That's the absolute key thing.
Pressure mounts on David Cameron over his party's view on Europe as the final objection to the Lisbon Treaty is dropped.
The British public wanted a referendum on this treaty because it does change the nature of Europe, and I think it's only fair people should be given a referendum when new treaties are proposed. It looks like, as you say, that this treaty is no longer going to be a treaty. It is going to become part of European law, and that will create a new situation, and a situation we will respond to, and we will set out in full how we will protect Britain's interests for the future, and we'll be doing that before the end of this week.
Well, what has happened today means that it is no longer possible to have a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. We have campaigned for that referendum for many years. We believe passionately that there should have been a referendum so that the British people could be consulted. But now that the treaty is going to become European law and is going to enter into force, that means that a referendum can no longer prevent the creation of the President of the European Council, the loss of British national vetoes. These things will already have happened, and a referendum cannot unwind them or prevent them.
Let the people decide. For years that has been the cry from opponents of further European integration, who've attacked the government for first promising, then abandoning that promise of a referendum.
We want to have a referendum. I mean, I think people in this country will be frustrated and angry that Ireland has been able to vote twice on a treaty that changes the way we're governed, and yet we haven't been able to vote once.
If you thought that meant the Tories would give you a vote on Europe come what may, think again.
Now that the treaty is going to become European law and is going to enter into force, that means that a referendum can no longer prevent the creation of the President of the European Council, the loss of British national vetoes. These things will already have happened, and a referendum cannot unwind them or prevent them.
That, some will claim, is a betrayal of a promise made 2 years ago by David Cameron to readers of The Sun. "I will give this cast-iron guarantee," he wrote. "If I become Prime Minister, a Conservative government will hold a referendum." But the carefully crafted sentence continued with the words, "on any EU treaty that emerges from these negotiations."
For years, the call for a referendum has been the glue that has held together Tories with very different views of Europe. Tomorrow, David Cameron must unveil a new policy without a promise of a referendum that will aim to convince people that even though the Lisbon Treaty is law, Britain can still win back powers from Brussels.
The best way of achieving that is to put those ideas to a referendum of the British people and say, I want to bring these powers back, do you agree? And when he gets an overwhelming vote of confidence from the British people in such a referendum, he can go to Brussels and say, I'm not asking for these powers back, the British people are demanding these powers back.
That view, held privately by many Tories, will be shouted from the rooftops by the UK Independence Party, whose unexpected success at the last European elections demonstrated they're a force to be reckoned with.
The British people have got the point. The majority of them already want to go back just to free trade, and we will put that to the British people, and I very much hope we are at least able to deny the Conservative Party a very large number of seats.
The last time the British people had a vote on Europe was in 1975. She campaigned for a yes vote, before later joining those who worried that Europe was getting just too powerful. John Major promised to be at the heart of Europe, but later went to war with them over a ban on British beef.
The European Union operates through goodwill. If we do not benefit from goodwill from partners, clearly we cannot reciprocate.
If David Cameron is to break the Euro curse that's dogged his party, he must convince sceptics that he's not now joining a train whose destination is a European superstate.
And then they broke their promise. That was wrong.
No, no, no. I have only one thing to say. You turn if you want to. the ladies not for turning.